Welcome to the Piston Fanatic. I'm your host, Dave Dalton, and I'm excited to share my passion and perspective of our Detroit Pistons as we go on this fantastic voyage together. I've been a diehard Piston fan since the days of Dave Bing and Bob Lanier. I've also been a varsity basketball coach of a very successful program. Well, Piston fans, it's great to be back. I'm sorry I missed a while. I went to an AAU tournament in Spooky Nook, Pennsylvania, so I was gone for a week, and so I'm glad to be back. Today we're going to talk about Cade turning down a spot on Team USA. We're going to talk about the Pistons being ranked last in the NBA by ESPN and The Athletic in the power rankings. We're going to talk about the Pistons rotation for next year, which is a big topic of discussion among Piston fans, I know. And we're going to also talk about the top 15 players that were ranked by a podcast, Upside Swings. A little bit about J.J. Redick, talking about our Detroit Pistons. So anyway, let's get started. First, let's talk about Cade Cunningham. According to Adrian Wojnarowski, Cade turned down a spot on Team USA for the 2023 FIBA World Cup team, which is the precursor to the Olympic team in 2024. So that doesn't mean Cade can't be on the Olympic team. But my take on it is, and I've heard some different ideas and speculation that he did it so he wouldn't get injured or whatever. But my thing is Cade wants to be in the best shape, in the best position to make our team the best that he can. So that means working out with our players and, taking care of what he needs to take care of to make his individual improvement. It shows us also he's healthy. He would not be, so him and Cade and Duren are going to be on the select team, which is going to scrimmage against the FIBA team. So he's going to be playing against these top level players. And so obviously he wouldn't do that if he wasn't healthy. Obviously the Olympic team would not have offered him a spot if they didn't know that he was healthy. So other thing is, it's really cool that he's given that respect, and that Cade and Duren's given that respect, that these people who have their pick of all the players in the NBA, and obviously these teams are the young players, that they chose two of our guys, and they had Cade on the top team had he wanted to. But again, I just have I believe in Cade's leadership. I believe that he puts and prioritizes our Detroit Pistons first, and I really love that about him. Wasn't it cool to watch if you got to see those videos of Cade playing some pickup ball? You go to YouTube, I'm sure, and find it. But he looked fabulous. Of course, it's just, a bunch of guys, NBA players playing pickup ball, but he flashed some signs of taking the ball to the basket. His three-point shot looked like it had more arc, and that's going to be a huge thing I'm going to be looking for when I get to see him shoot more, is how much arc he has on his shot. I think that it was the number one thing in making his three-point shot more effective and shooting a higher percentage. So, but he just looked great. And obviously he's bigger and stronger than he was before, but he looked sleek and fast and real explosive. So I'm really excited about him. And, again, we need to see it this year because he's going to be eligible for the max rookie extension at the end of this year. So hopefully that all pans out. So the national team, the U.S. select team, includes Brunson, Halliburton, Anthony Edwards, Ingram, Bridges, Reeves, really great players. Cam Johnson, Jaren Jackson Jr. So it's a really good team, and that's who Cade's going to be scrimmage against, and Duren's going to be getting the scrimmage against those guys. So that's going to be a good test for him. And the team Cade's going to play with, the select team that was also picked, was Cade, Duren, Jalen Green from Houston, Quentin Grimes, Chet Holmgren, Herb Jones, Trey Murphy, who I love, Keegan Murray, and Jalen Williams that plays for the OKC. Those are great players. I would love to watch those games, man. I wish there was some way that we were going to get to see some video of that. So anyway, it's great that Cade's doing well, and I think I'm going to talk a little bit later. Well, I'm going to talk about it right now. So these guys that did the Upswings, it's a podcast. It's a good podcast. These guys cover the draft. They follow these guys from the time they're in high school, and they ranked this on this exercise. They picked the top 15 players that were 23 and under based on what they thought, how they would impact a team winning a championship. And so they had, I think they had Wemby and Zion in a tier at the top, and then the next tier they had Cade, Amen Thompson, and Evan Mobley. So, and they had Cade had ranked highly, but they both had a little variation in their rankings, but they still showed a lot of respect. And one of them said that he's one of the smartest players in the NBA, one of the three smartest players in the NBA, and he said Cade and LeBron, and he couldn't come up with the third guy. So anyway, that was a lot of respect for Cade. And then also JJ Redick on his podcast, Old Man in the Three. It's a great podcast, very entertaining. He's very insightful, and he does a great job interviewing people. But they asked a question on, he had a mailbag issue episode just recently, and he said someone asked about what they thought the Pistons were going to be like, and he was very high. Again, everybody says if the Pistons are going to be good and be a playoff team and a real winning team in years to come, it's going to be dependent on whether Cade can shoot, and Cade could be the all-star type player, which JJ and the other people are real confident that he will be. So they also mentioned how excited they were about Sur and how great he did, and so it's fun. We have a fun team. We have an exciting team, and we're going to talk about the power rankings now, and the power rankings did two things. For one thing, I think it's going to give our team some added motivation, a little chip on our shoulder. I don't believe it that we are going to finish last, but it also shows that realistically we are not going to be one of the top teams, and there's a big variation of where we could finish because we do have so much talent. But I still think we're going to win like about 32 games, 34 games, somewhere in that area. And could we win 40? Yes, if everything clicked. We have so much talent, but it's young, and these pieces haven't fit together. And we're going to talk a lot about that when we talk about the rotation. There's too much up in the air that we have to learn during the course of the year that, I think that we'll probably lose some close games because we haven't got Monty. It's going to take Monty time to figure out this roster and how to make the pieces fit. So anyways, just looking at the bottom 10 teams, they had the Jazz ranked 20th, the Pacers 21st, the Bulls 22nd, the Magic 23rd, the Rockets 24th, Raptors 25th, Spurs 26th, Hornets 27th, Blazers 28th, Wizards 29th, and our Detroit Pistons number 30. So then in a separate thing, the FanDuel or I don't know if it's FanDuel or Vegas where I got this from, the over-under for wins for the season. So the Jazz are at 34.5 and the Pacers at 35.5. So even though the one had the Jazz ranked higher than the Pacers, but FanDuel has the projection for the Pacers to win one more game than them. And the Bulls 37.5, the Magic 35.5, and the Magic were great last year. The Magic started like 5-15 or worse than that even, and they were about 500 the rest of the way. And then the Rockets, who loaded up, man, they got some valuable, really good veterans, and I think they got Emi Udoka as their coach. I think, and they got loads of young talent. So I think they're going to have a challenge worse than the Pistons for finding minutes for all of them, but they have a chance to really improve. The Raptors 37.5, the Spurs 30.5. So even with Wemby, we wanted Wemby so bad, and of course we still want him, but 30.5 wins. That's what the over/under is that you can bet on the Spurs this year. So even with him, so that just shows you that you're just not going to get one player and you're automatically going to be great. But the Hornets had projected 31.5 wins. The Wizards 25.5, and the Pistons 27.5 wins. So they have the Wizards picked, and I think if there was one team that was going to tank, it would be the Wizards. Although the Wizards signed Kuzma, and they also got I drawn a blank, the kid from Michigan that played for the Warriors that was so good. Anyway, he is so they have some good players, but they are. The one team that I would think that would be really tanking might be the Wizards, but they got those two good guys, and they're going to probably win some games. My thought is all these teams are going to beat each other. There's going to be so much of a cluster of players. Obviously, injury is going to play a factor. Whichever one of these teams I'm talking about in the bottom 10, if they get key players injured, like we had Cade hurt last year, that's going to make them drop. And if a team gets off to a hot start and things click and everybody stays healthy, like with Sacramento had more players stay healthy in their starting lineup than any team in the NBA. So that played a big role in their improving and getting so much better and winning so much. So I think the Pistons, here's the thing, even the Pistons got such a bad over under 27.5 wins they're projecting. That's still 10 wins more than we got last year, 10.5 wins more than we won. We only won 17. So people are still projecting and giving the Pistons some credit that they're going to be significantly better. 10 games better is a huge improvement. Not many teams ever improve 10 games. And again, I said I think they were going to improve 15 games, but it could be more. I wouldn't be shocked if we won 21 games more, but it's just going to be hard. It's just going to be all these teams. The one advantage I do think that we have that can't be dismissed is that the Eastern Conference, they've kind of taken a step up the last couple years and had more good teams. And the West took a little bit of a dip, but now it's kind of shifting back again. The West, I think, is tougher top to bottom next year. And so you look at the bottom 10 teams, or the bottom 9 teams, because the Jazz is in the West. But Pacers, Bulls, Magic are in the East. The Rockets are in the West. Raptors, Spurs are in the West. Hornets and Blazers. And the Blazers is real iffy. Depends on what happens with Dame. The Wizards are in the East, and the Pistons are in the East. So more of the bottom teams by far are in the East. So I do think that that speaks well for the Pistons because, you play the Western Conference only twice during the year, and you play the Eastern Conference teams a lot more. So it's going to be fun to watch. The thing I'm going to say is I enjoyed watching it last year, but if Cade stays healthy and we got all these Asor to watch and Ivy to watch and Duren to play all together, they are going to be so much fun to watch. So let's go get into the how they're going to play all these players. So the rotations for next year, and a lot of people speculate, and it's one of those things again that fans do, and I'm a fan, and we have no control over it. And there's a lot of things we don't know what goes on behind the scenes. Even right now, they're watching how hard James Wiseman's working, and maybe Monty's watching that, and maybe Monty's falling in love with him and how he's playing, and maybe he sees a good role for him. Maybe not, but I'm just saying that there's a lot of things between now and the start of the preseason. There's a lot of things that are going to happen at training camp, preseason games, and so and even after the season starts, I really think that there's going to be some volatility to our lineups during the season, that some guy might be playing a lot for one stretch, and then all of a sudden somebody else is going to play a lot for a stretch. I think Monty's got to get it figured out. We do have just a ton of question marks in our lineup. So let's get into that. So James Edwards III, who writes for The Athletic, good writer. I don't agree with everything he writes, but he broke down the 240 minutes. So NBA team, there are 240 minutes to be dispersed among all their players. So he has Cade getting 34. So that means that his backup can only get 14 minutes. So if at that position, say he's the point guard position, then if he gets 34, that only leaves 14. So that's what's tough, because Ivy he has down for 32. I agree with both those. I think those were what I would play those guys. Those are right along the minutes. He has Bojan playing 28, which is less than he played last year. My thing is, though, you're not going to slot everybody into one position. So Asur, especially, for example, he could play, especially defensively, 2, 3, or 4. And so there's going to be lineups where he plays with Duren, Stewart, and him. And there's also going to be lineups probably where he plays with Duren and Bojan and him. So he gives us a lot of versatility because he can guard a 4. And again, I Bojan last year, when he was out in the court for the Pistons, we allowed 8 points more when he was on the court than we did when he was off the court, and that's not good. part of the problem was a lot of the season he played with Sadiq, which those were two terrible defenders. Stewart was not a rim protector, even though he's a good switch. He's very switchable and a good defender, but he doesn't, when those guys get blown by, he's not there to protect at the rim. Ivy was even worse than Bojan on his defensive ranking. So we talk about that for a minute. He showed such improvement on his mid-range game, his three-point shooting, and his playmaking. And everybody says he's the first one in the gym and the last one to leave the gym. He talks about all the videotape he watched. They do drills not just for offense, but for defense. And he is such a freak athlete. I really believe he is going to take a significant step forward. Not that he's going to be consistent defensively, but I think he's going to be a much better defender this coming year. And being around these other guys is going to make a difference. So he's got Stu playing 28 minutes a game. And I just tell you, James Edwards and Troy Weaver both love Stu, but I don't think Monty's going to play him 28 minutes unless if he shoots 38% on threes. I think he could play 28 minutes. But if he's shooting anything less than that, I think that will appreciably drop his minutes. He has Duren for 34 minutes, which I love Duren. I think we're a better team whenever he's on the court, but I don't think he will play him quite 34 minutes. Partway because we have all these other guys. We have Weissman and Bagley that play that position, and even Stu. So I think they might take some minutes away from Duren just so they can give it to those other guys. I think that he'll probably play close to 30. That's what my prediction would be. So then after that, we have Monty Morris, who we brought in as a really great backup point guard. Again, his assist to turnover ratio is the best in the NBA almost every year it's been. So he is ideal backup. But if Cade's playing, all those minutes, then there's not many minutes for Monty. So he had Monty playing 16. I think he's going to want more than that. He has Burks getting 14 minutes. And Burks was phenomenal last year. I was angry that he only played 20 minutes a game last year because so Bojan's defensive rate, we were 8 points better or worse with him defensively. We were 4 points better with Bojan on the court offensively, which is the second best on our team. Burks is the first. Burks, we were 5 points better offensively when he was on the court versus when he was off the court. So I just think he needs to play. And obviously, the big wild card is we got all this too many players to play, and so a trade for Bojan or Burks is possible. Burks, this is the last year that we have him under contract. All these things, we have Harris and Monty Morris and Burks and Bojan and those veteran guys and Joe Harris that I think a lot will be decided this year. Depends on how things play out. So, that's the thing. Burks or Joe Harris, even if he doesn't get to play much, he's still a trade asset and he's still holding a spot for us so that we have more cap space. But so anyway, let me finish up by saying he has Livers playing 20 minutes. I don't see that. Again, James loves Livers and Stu. Those are his two favorite players. But I don't think Livers will get to play that much unless he really impresses in training camp. He's a real good defender, but he's not that great of a defender. I can't see if he shoots as well as he did last year. Wasn't phenomenal, which I think he is a really good shooter. But I just think he could definitely easily be the odd man out. And there's 20 minutes there, and I think I'd give the minutes to Asur. And it's too bad that Livers was hurt so much in his career already. And we'll just see what happens. He has Bagley playing 14 minutes. Well, I can tell you right now, Bagley might be better than Weissman, but I think that Troy Weaver's influence will make sure that there's, at least during the first part of the season, that Weissman gets a chance to prove himself. And I think that Monty probably is going to do that. So it's really going to be impossible. Because when he divvied up those 240 minutes, that was with no minutes for Weissman, no minutes for Sasser, no minutes for Harris, and no minutes for Killian. So those four guys, so we got 14 guys that, could argue for themselves that they should be getting playing time. And there's no way possible that we can play 14 guys. And so what's going to happen, I think, is somebody's going to get injured here and there, and somebody's going to get a chance here and there. Maybe Wiseman will get the backup 5 reps at the beginning of the season, and at some point maybe Bagley will. And, it's going to just be a work in progress. And that's why this year is what it's going to be. Again, we paid Stu all that money, but still Stu hasn't never proven anything about. So his position on the team right now is to be the 4 and to be a stretch 4 where he shoots the 3. And is there a chance that he can shoot the 3 good? Yes, he showed that last year. Is there a chance he might not? Yes, he showed that last year. So we're just going to see what happens with all that, and that also is going to help us evaluate to see what we need to add to the team that next year. So that is going to be the key. Cade, hasn't played much in his career yet. Ivy's going to only be a second year, so they both need to have a big developmental year. Stu does. Duren needs a year to develop. Asur certainly does. And again, I'm so excited about him, and that I think that he's going to do so many things that he's going to make it impossible to keep off the floor. And just be fun to see what happens. I think that when they ranked the top 15 guys 23 and under, they had Amin high, but they said a lot of good things about him. But I think the same things could be said about Asur, that he is so smart and so athletic and has such a high motor, and he's going to rebound. That's another place where he gives us a great flexibility, and why he can play so many positions, and even the 4 is because he can rebound the crap out of the ball. So anyway, I just think we just are in for a exciting season. There's going to be, I think, a lot of debate over who should play how many minutes and whatever. But the big thing, though, still for me is watching Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, Jalen Duren, and Asur Thompson. Those are our 4 key players. I will say this, Troy hasn't made any just flat-out terrible moves yet. It remains to be seen. But I love that he values character, and I do think it makes a difference in guys that have the right character, the right work ethic, and the right sense of being a good teammate, and he values character highly. Sometimes I worry that it's the end all, and so that we I would never suggest that we would ever take a player who doesn't have good work ethic, and I would like us to take players who have good work ethic. But if Stu doesn't pan out shooting the 3, well, he loves him. He paid him all that big bucks before he proved he deserved it, really. And so, but is that, just because he does have all the intangibles that you would want. And again, I would want those intangibles that Stu brings to the court every day. But that doesn't mean that you can play him because he's big on the intangibles. So anyway, it is great to be back. I get a big kick out of listening to podcasters that say how they're tired and how they need a break or whatever. And I love doing podcasts. And I love reading your comments. I love that I have the listeners that I do. And please spread the word about our podcast and share it with some friends. And if you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe. We're over 500 subscribers. That's really cool. And please leave a thumbs up. If you're listening on Spotify, please leave 5 stars. Do something nice for somebody today, and go Pistons.